Okay, peeps, welcome back. So today we're going to be going over the Bitcoin miners. And with that being said, let's get it. Okay, so as you guys can see, we're on the first chart here. We're on Mara. We don't have the portfolio pulled up where we have all of the Bitcoin miners positioned in our portfolio, but if you guys saw our buy, sells, and dividends, you would already know what our positions are. If you have not seen that video, you're welcome to go back and watch it. Feel free to view it at your own leisure. But anyways, more or less, we have, I think it's like 200 shares of Mara, 300 shares of clsk, 280 shares of Riot, and 700 shares of btbt. And we just recently got out of HUD 8. We used to have 300 shares, but we got rid of HUD 8 because it's already pretty much taken off at this point. So Mara, so what we're looking at here is we're inside of a broadening wedge. As you guys can see, this massive rising broadening wedge here. Technically speaking, this is a bearish pattern. Usually when you see the wedge kind of spreading out as it gets bigger and it's going to the upside, that's bearish, whereas the inverse is bullish. So in terms of where we could see support and where this thing could head, so support pretty much is going to be along this bottom trend line, which is pretty much sitting stacked just right below the support. So you're looking at maybe $16.50 and then $18.40 to $20 at support. Then above and beyond that, you got roughly about 29 to 33 as resistance. Now, if this thing tops out, let's say it tops out somewhere around maybe like December of this year. Let's say Bitcoin's all-time high hits in December of this year, and that's when the Bitcoin miners hit their all-time highs. I mean, we could be looking at a Mara, and of course it could go much higher than this. That's possible, or it could not go as high as this. But based on this pattern, if it is to sit within this pattern during the bull trend, it could potentially go as high as $52 in the immediate short term, as you guys can see right here, which aligns up nicely with support that we hit previously on the two peaks for Mara in the previous bull run. As you guys can see, Mara got all the way up there to almost $85 a share. So it tells you that it is possible. And back here, Mara was actually even higher than that. So you had 150, and then way back here during 2012, it was $233 a share. So there is a lot of possibility here. I'm not sure it's going to go to $230, but I mean, anything's possible, I suppose. So Mara, I would say, this one, in my opinion, is a buy. Of course, not financial advice. Do your own research to understand what you're getting yourself involved into. But we had previous resistance here twice before this thing eventually broke out. And when it did break out, it basically went from, as you guys can see, a low of about $8 all the way to a high of about $33, so nearly a 4x. So this resistance has been turned into key support. It's also inside of the broadening wedge, but it's also near the bottom of it, which typically, as you guys have seen in the past, has been a major bounce point. And it is also sitting above the EMAs again. So we kind of had this like choppiness, got below the EMAs, but now we're back above it. We're also sitting at support. So very bullish setup here. You guys are free to do whatever you want to with that. But just going from the current price to the previous resistance, you'd be looking at about nearly a 67% gain. And do keep in mind, you can also do options on Mara. The premiums for cash secured puts and cover calls are actually quite good. So December 2024, if we were to measure that, that'd be about 151% move. And just so you all know, the let's say you wanted to do like a 30 delta, or roughly about a 30 delta on Mara, let's say on a weekly basis, this thing would pay about $50 a week in premiums for selling calls or puts. So clsk, this thing has been in Chop City. It has done absolutely nothing, up, down, and all around, kind of within this range here. This could be potentially a bull flag. So you have this massive flag pull here, and then this just kind of chops around in this flag. That's another potential setup. There is also a rising broadening wedge on this one as well. So in terms of the flag target, you guys can see the flag was created here. So I just pull it to the breakout point. Let's say the breakout point is maybe in July or something. I don't know exactly when it would be, but the target would basically be previous resistance at $36. $36 is pretty much right around the peak for the last bull cycle for clsk. So in terms of support, I would say because this thing is so volatile and it's just kind of bouncing around in between this 1480 to 2130, it probably looking for somewhere basically between at the very least at 1460, maybe all the way down to this support level. You can see the trend line and the support are currently converging. So pretty much anywhere between 14 to 1460, in my opinion, would be the highest risk reward. You guys doing your own research on how, what you think is the best bet here, but I'm just showing you guys what I see. So that's the support. Of course, we need to get past this level here. So this is 21 to about 23 and a half. And if we get past that, you're looking at 3650 to about 42, 42 and a half, somewhere in there. So from the current price to previous resistance, it's about a 47% gain. If we get all the way up to that flagpole target, it's 127%. And then actually I need to remeasure this. So give me 1 second on this. So I'm going to extend this out a little bit so we can get this kind of closer towards December, which is when I think Bitcoin is actually going to hit its all-time high, because that's usually when it does. It happened last cycle. It also happened in December of 2017 too. So good reason to believe December is going to be the month. But if I were to measure it from the current price, let's say all the way out till December of this year, I mean, it's pretty far up there. So 254% gain, potentially $56 a share. So Riot, this is the one that we previously just positioned out of HUD 8 into Riot. You guys can kind of see why. So a lot of support sitting here at where roughly about the current price is. So somewhere between 850 to about, I would say about 950 is massive support. So it's been starting as support pretty much since back here, September 2023. You can see we also tested back here in March of 2023. And more recently, again, over here, we had this kind of fake out to the downside where it got bought back up pretty quick and turned into a bullish hammer candle at basically almost exactly the reversal point. So I'll show you guys HUD 8 real quick. So you can see HUD 8's taken off massively. It's already touched that resistance. You can kind of see why we got out of it, because it might come back down, retest the falling wedge here, and then bounce back up to resistance. But we feel like the bigger move at this point is going to be in Riot instead of HUD 8, because again, HUD 8 has already moved up massively. So the move here, we'll start the first move. So the first move would be inverse head and shoulders pattern. So shoulder, head, shoulder, and then some kind of breakout. It's not so obvious on the weekly, but it is on the daily. I'll show you that in a minute. So that move would be about 79% from the current price. And if I took it from, let's say, the current price to the highest, most recent swing high back in July of last year, 127% move. Again, that's roughly about 20 and a half bucks on Riot. So you're looking at least double your money on this position. So in terms of support, again, it ranges between 775 to about 1020. Like I said before, I think likely that these candle lows here are going to hold at around this $9 area, because you can see the sellers really tried to push this thing down to the bottom of support, and it got just ate up immediately by the buyers. And then your resistance level is going to be 1870 to about $21. So if I go down to the daily time frame here, the inverse head and shoulders is much more obvious. So you have your shoulder here, and then you have your head, and then your right shoulder. Now, ideally, what would have been the best case scenario, in my opinion, is we get this. So we get this left shoulder, head, and then right shoulder, and then bang, just break straight out. But unfortunately, we did not get anything like that. It kind of went to try to break out and then kind of just chopped around and retested. So you guys can see what's going on there. But regardless, you got your target all the way up here, which again is roughly about $16.50. So it's still quite high compared to the current price. Okay, so now going over to HUD 8. So we had this falling wedge here, which is a bullish pattern. Of course, we had the kind of confluence here on the bullish indicators. So we got our golden cross right here on the MACD, and then the RSI was just slowly pushing above the bull zone on the break-even level here. But once we got the golden cross here on the EMAs, and this thing started ripping above the top of this wedge and the EMAs, it was pretty much game over after this point. So In my opinion, there is still a little bit of room to run on HUD 8, although I don't know how significant it's going to be. I mean, just to get to the top of this resistance is about another $2.30. To get to the top of the entire resistance zone, though, would be substantially more. So you'd be looking at about $7.50. I mean, you put $100 in, it goes up $7.50. I mean, that's about $750. With options, it's a little tricky because the further out of the money you go, like if your strike price, let's say you bought and your average price is 15 and you put your strike price at 17, but then it goes all the way to $23. Well, you have to sell those shares at 17. You don't have a choice. If you want to get some decent premium, but if you're looking for the share price appreciation, then naturally you would put it further out of the money towards like 20, 21, 22, 23. And in that situation, you would not make as much money in premiums. So it makes it actually quite difficult. And of course, there's also the expiration timing of the dates, whether it's 30 days out, 60 days out, so on and so on. So in terms of a bounce area, probably about these EMAs, this trend line, I'd say roughly about 1050 is 1050, somewhere in there is where it could go down if it was going to retest. So that would be a roughly about 30% drop. Again, you could either wait for it to get down there or DCA down. It's up to you guys how you want to do it, if you want to do it. So from current price to the swing high, 53%. And then if it gets a retest of some kind down here, it would then become 120%. Cipher, this thing is slowly trying to move to the apex of its coil move here. It's hard to say if this one's bullish or bearish, but we are creating higher lows here, and it's not breaking out of this resistance. So we'll just have to wait and see how the move goes. There's really only one or two ways it can go. It can go up or down. I mean, if the bears continue to hold here on Cipher, it could just straight back into support. So as of right now, your support is going to be lined up right around 380 to, I mean, pretty much the bottom of this resistance is where it would meet up. So about $5 or so. Again, there's no guarantee it has to get all the way to the absolute apex of this thing, but just something to keep an eye out on. So again, resistance is going to be about $5 to $5.54, and the swing high up here is $5.90. So if you manage to get in on the pullback down to the trend line and ride it all the way up to the swing high, it's still about a 50% gain. So btbt, this thing just, I don't know what the heck happened here, but this thing just had a monster breakout. I was looking at this thing while I was on break, like, holy crap, dude, are you serious? This thing's up 40% in one day. But again, when Bitcoin goes to 100, 200, 300,000 or whatever it's going to be at the peak of the cycle, I suspect these miners are probably going to have some, just eye-popping, face-melting kind of gains. It's going to be crazy. Same thing goes with anything else in crypto. So the Grayscale trusts and also native cryptocurrencies, just going to be mind-blowing kinds of gains. So we have what looks to be like a potential triple golden cross here. This is a massive green candle with some pretty serious volume. As you guys can see down here, the volume is insane. So it's 111 million shares. If I had to guess, I would say there's probably some kind of news catalyst, although I don't know what it is. Not really too concerned about news catalysts when it comes to the miners, because it's more of kind of a cyclical play with the Bitcoin bull run and stuff. So the candle we have here is above these previous candle highs, so that's very bullish. I suspect likely this thing will at least go to test maybe 360, 370, maybe even as high as 420 on the next move up. So in terms of support, I mean, I'd be looking at the top of this support once again. As you guys can see, all these candle lows here sitting at about $2. That could potentially be your entry. And then resistance 420 to 485, and then the swing high up here is about 530. So from current price to swing high, 66% move. If it pulls all the way back to $2, which could happen, 162% move on that. BITF, this thing, yep, pretty much did exactly what I would expect it to when it rockets straight up to resistance. Just basically got rejected. That's not really surprising. So we got a shooting star candle here, and then boom, shot to the downside with what looks to be like almost another shooting star candle. Not quite, but pretty close. Based on the way this looks, I'd say likely it's at least going to retest the EMAs, so probably somewhere between 230 to 245. It could go lower, but just to give you a support, that again is going to be between 2 to 235, about $3 to 360 on resistance there, and 390 at the absolute previous swing high. So from current price to the swing high, 52% move, and from, let's just say it gets back to the yellow EMA to the swing high, roughly about 70%. So anyways, hope you all enjoyed this content. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see y'all later. Peace.